Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show.
Great to be with you, Chad. And listen, I'm always in a good mood when I'm back home in West Texas, and I've been traveling the district and went to Yoakum County, America yesterday, and Seminole and Gaines County. Before that, Big Spring, Scurry, talking about oil and gas, our bread and butter, fueling the economy, energy independence, and how we get back on our feet and get our country back on track. Pre-COVID, we were about as hot as you could get, and we'll be back. We're seeing great signs of recovery.
Well, you got to be happy. Just one, as an American, two, as somebody who has been paying attention and questions about when the economy will rebound and everything else. And, not to declare that we're out of the woods just yet, but today's jobs numbers look great, and you got to be happy with what we're seeing today.
Absolutely. We should celebrate as a country that the free enterprise and free people in free states that are provided the empowerment and responsibility to do the right thing, and they're doing it, are creating this rebound. And 2.5 million jobs, unemployment they were predicting would be over 20%.
Yeah.
It's actually down to 13%. So we're and listen, this is all with this major government barrier at the federal level, with unemployment at 40 million and 70% of those on unemployment getting paid more on unemployment than they did in their previous jobs. Now, that'll expire July 31st, but that is a major barrier and headwinds, and we're still bringing them back. So I think the best is yet to come.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. When you've been traveling throughout the district, what's on the top of people's minds with everything that's going on in the world right now? What are people talking to you about and asking you about?
Well, there's a lot recently, but I think when we focus, for example, with the energy industry, which has been my focus over the last 2 days, and generally speaking, it's getting the country back and turning the economy on and leaning into that and not being, hunkered down in our basements forever, because it's a disaster in so many ways, but including, and not the least of which, is health, with suicides, addiction, deferred medical procedures. People get it. West Texas, man, the energy level, the activity in the marketplace is tremendous, and I'm encouraged. But they want the rest of the country to be this way, and we know that they're not all that way. And not every leader, not every state has a Governor Abbott, and not every community operates like Lubbock and West Texas. And that demand is really the key. It's the lead dog in the sled to get these businesses back on their feet. That sure, liquidity is important. We fixed some things about the Paycheck Protection Program that are helpful, and we got to get that unemployment barrier down so that people are incentivized to get to work. All those things together are going to be key to our full recovery. And, we're, again, taking all the right steps, and we cannot extend that unemployment deal like Nancy Pelosi did in the HEROES Act, which is one of 100 things that were terrible about that bill.
What were some of the changes made in the PPP program? And, I mean, if you were one of the first people to take out a PPP loan, does that apply to you, or has time run out? How does that work?
Well, it does apply retroactively, and it extends. So 8 weeks was the window that you had to apply the monies, where it was 75% of the loan would need to go to payroll. And if you did that, we would convert it to a grant. It incentivized keeping people on the job and off of unemployment. But the problem was the time frame. I mean, there's still companies that aren't up fully, or maybe they're at 25% or 50%. The oil and gas industry could be all turned on right now, these mom and pop independents, but the price point isn't there. I mean, they can't turn a profit right now. So we just made the policy more meaningful and more reasonable by providing the 24 weeks. We have a little longer payback period, so a little more forbearance there. It just gives them flexibility all the way around. Plus, it's a 60-40 split instead of 75-25 in terms of how much needs to go to payroll, how much can go to other operating expenses like rent.
Right. Yeah, very good. And I think, Congressman, I mean, without seeing all the numbers that are out there, but I would think that with the jobs numbers that we are seeing today, I think some of that can be attributed back to the PPP program.
There's no question from people all across the political spectrum, and just taking even politics out of it, whatever the industry and sector of our economy, I mean, all types and flavors of businesses are benefiting. And it was a lifeline, man. I mean, these folks were, by no fault of their own, and government decisions because of the pandemic, right or wrong, they were just told to just turn it off. And so this is a way to compensate them for that, number one. And number two, it's a way to get them up. It's a way to keep folks employed, and it is working. I'd say that was one of the best things that came out of the CARES Act. Certainly there are always problems with legislation. The sort of sausage making is always going to spit out something that you want to spit up. But in general, it was, I think, very helpful and productive to get us through the tough time and now kind of lift us up as we rebound from it.
Congressman, let's go ahead and take a break. When we come back, I want to get into the federal debt. I know that you joined with some other members of Congress to send a letter going, hey, we need to start focusing on the debt. We'll talk about that and some of the other news making headlines in the nation.
You bet.
All right, that's Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show. We'll be right back. Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. Thank you for tuning in today. We've got Congressman Jodey Arrington joining us this morning. Congressman, when we went to break, we were talking about the federal debt, and I know you partnered up with a few of your colleagues, both on the right and on the left, it seems, to address or hopefully address the federal debt. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to talk about something that I think is the biggest threat long-term to an exceptional America, and certainly the freedoms and opportunities that we've been blessed with generation after generation. That won't be the case if we have a sovereign debt crisis. We're going to bend the curve on COVID, right? We've done that. And we're going to bend the curve upward on getting folks back to work. The question is, will we stave off the ultimate crisis, which would be a sovereign debt crisis? You can't print enough money, and you can't bail yourself out of that. So at almost $4 trillion now, which is the highest ever in terms of our deficit spending in 1 year, and now we've exceeded, and this is terrible, we've exceeded the debt to GDP history record from World War II. So we've got to make sure, for our children's sake, that as we're managing through this, that we're willing to get in, and the key is will, because there's been no will in Congress on both sides of the aisle. So I worked with Democrats. We got 30 Democrats, 30 Republicans from all across various caucuses and the spectrum of ideas and ideology, and that are committed to bringing that debt to GDP down and to raising the profile of that, putting it before our deliberations always, and forcing. Here's the key. Make sure that we put a provision in the next COVID legislation. That's what we're asking of leaders on both sides, that will force us to do what we don't do by nature that everyone else in America does, and that's manage responsibly our finances and get a hold of this debt, bring it down so we don't hand this over to our kids so deep in a hole they can't crawl out of.
Does this mean, you look at, I know Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, they had proposed another stimulus package that covered much more than just the coronavirus pandemic. They wanted to include a whole bunch of other stuff, and it had nowhere to go. It was dead on arrival. But as far as the debt load goes and everything else, does this mean that, another stimulus, whether it's directed at states or cities or individuals or businesses, is that done, or is this just a part of a much larger concern?
It's a larger concern and has been since I ran for this office. And every member of Congress, it seems to me, since I've been there, talks about it. I'm not saying they're insincere, But we've got to do something. And some people believe, and rightfully so, that Congress won't fix it like anything unless there's a crisis. They wait till it's too late. You can't do that with this one. So this crisis presents an opportunity on a lot of fronts. Think about restructuring our supply chain because of the dependency on China. This is another opportunity, Chad, in my opinion, to put a provision in where we might not get it in and passed in a bipartisan way in any other situation. So I'm proud of this opportunity for us in West Texas to lead, and this is something I've been talking about. It's hard. It's not easy to. We're gonna have to make some progress before we actually solve the problem. This is progress. It's traction, and we'll move the chains with this. We won't solve it all together, but it's a great start, and I'm proud of what we're doing.
Yeah. By the way, just to let folks know, the president just signed that bill that Congressman was talking about earlier with us, extending the deadlines for businesses that received emergency PPP loans. So the president just signing that, Congressman, and that's good. Again, good news for those businesses that are out there. Let me ask you about the riots. I think just about everybody agrees the death of George Floyd and what happened there it was a terrible, horrible situation. What we've seen since, where rioters have basically taken over city streets and burned and looted businesses, has just been terrible for this nation. Where do you think we are right now?
Well, I can tell you that everything you said I agree with. The whole situation with George Floyd, justice, I think, is being quickly pursued, and as it should be. And I think everybody grieves with their family and grieves for our country when anything like that happens. I'll tell you, the police officers I've been talking to and local law enforcement since I've been home, I just trying to hug their neck and tell them we're proud of them. We know that does not that what happened there was not indicative of their profession and the honorable men and women that serve in blue and protect us. That's a key point. So, but with the riots and the looting, I mean, all this violent mob activity has got to stop, and we need law and order. I think the president's right about law and order. It's about the safety of our citizens. We've had 15 people die. 15 people die on account of it. Now, listen, peaceful protest, Chad, Constitution, man. I'll defend everybody's right to go speak their truth to power, their views. That's as American as apple pie. But when it starts getting violent, and listen, when local leaders will allow it to happen, the same ones that told us, put your mask on and get in your basement, now they're saying, get out into the streets. I mean, I just can't, I don't have words to describe that, but that's why the president is saying, if you don't do the job to protect our people, I'm going to do the job to protect your community.
Do you think, well, first, I guess I'll ask you this, because how long have you been in the district? Did you see any of the riots or anything in the district? When I say the district, in D.C., not here in this district. We've been calm here in this area, but up in D.C., did you see any of that?
You got to say the swamp, then I'll understand.
There you go.
Yeah. No, look. I left just after we voted. I got back as soon as I could, and then the riots ensued. I had colleagues there, obviously, my teammates, my staff, and I got videos and I watched on news with great concern. But, that's a lot of the large cities like D.C. Are being turned over and destroyed. And, I think probably law enforcement officers think about L.A., where they're taking money away from law enforcement to invest in communities. It's like, are you kidding me? These people already feel handcuffed and hamstrung to do their job. I mean, the good guys, the vast majority, they feel like, I think we put the good guys, again, the vast majority of law enforcement, in a situation that really hinders their job, but also it puts them at risk for losing their life, and we're seeing that. So the curfews have been taken off in some of these cities. We'll see if there's a spike. If there is in violence, I don't think the president's going to sit idly by.
Did you have any issues with the president doing the walkover to the church and them clearing out the crowds?
I can't. I'm not like the president's, backdrop guy. I don't know why they, picked that as their, symbol of law and order. I do think the church is a historic church, as is Lafayette Park, and sort of symbolizing things that are precious to our communities that are being burned and desecrated and torn down. But I could give him my thoughts about how to do things better or not. I don't have a problem with it. The fact is, he had to cross the park. The job of these folks is to make sure that if you're a peaceful protester, you'll probably move out of the way when a police officer or somebody in the protective detail says, listen, we need you to move out here. If you're not willing to do that, then, what else can you do?
Yeah.
So I think those folks, as far as I know, and again, maybe there's more information that I don't know, but they had to do what they had to do. Would I have chosen that? That's not for me to advise the president.
Yeah. Congressman, appreciate your time today, and appreciate you spending some time in the district, of course, and going around hearing from people. Anything else that you have planned that you're going to be doing while you're here in the district?
I've got a lot of plans to spend a lot of time with my people in 29 counties. They will inspire me and encourage me and energize me, which they always do, and I'll get more time with them. Let me say to the class of 2020, Cody Smyers at Mustang Nation, the class of 2020 there at Cornell High School, all the high school grads and college grads here at Texas Tech and all the universities that we host in West Texas, remember this. This is a tough time for you guys, but the world's your oyster. And go do great things and go make a difference in the world. God bless you guys. We celebrate with you.
Absolutely. Congressman, thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
You bet. Good to be with you. Bye-bye.
That's Congressman Jodey Arrington here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk KFYO. And, some good things there. And, of course, the big news today, and I think this ties in so much with what we're seeing being played out. The good news today, jobs numbers are up. And, when the congressman talks about not adding to the debt, let me tell you, there are a lot of members of Congress who would be very happy if they don't have to keep pumping money out. And if the recovery takes off, they're going to be very happy if they don't have to do more checks out to people. Well, at least on the Republican side.